1 minute. I respect the Honorable, but I think, Mr. Speaker, I'm torn between supporting this bill and opposing it, because I'm not sure whether it's appropriate to have this kind of bill having a legal standing, a framework for this order of precedence. I think we are mixing things up here. If you look at all modern democracies that I've looked at, there is the presidential succession, which usually has a legal standing. There's a legal framework to provide for presidential succession. But the order of precedence in all modern democracies is simply a ceremonial protocol. And you cannot have it as in a legal framework with a legal standing. And the reason for that is that in all these democracies, there is the co-equal separation of powers between the different arms of government. That's the judiciary, parliament, and the presidency. So in that order, in cases of presidential succession, these things are provided because these are times of crisis. But when in normal circumstances, when you place the Chief Justice in an order lower than the President or Parliament lower than the President, there is a reason why it takes away that co-equal separation of powers. It will tell in a way that Parliament is below the President. So I think there is a reason why all these democracies took a way of not making a legal framework for order of precedence. It's simply a ceremonial protocol so that the law does not provide, but usually they write it in some way that the President speaks and okay. But be it as it may, as we stand now, and I think I will oppose it for that reason. I think we don't need to legalize such a thing. Be it as it may, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the bill, it puts speakers of parliament. And there is a lot of borrowing, though not in legal, though without a legal standing, between presidential successions and order protocols in those modern democracies. If you look at the US, for example, if you look at the order of protocol, it borrows from the presidential succession, where the president comes first, the vice president, and the third person in line. It doesn't talk of parliament, and there are two houses of parliament. It talks of the Speaker of the House, which is similar to the National Assembly here. The Speaker of the Senate comes fourth. So if we borrow from US democracy, we must also borrow from all the items that are in that democracy. And if you look at the US order of succession today and protocol, it is after the vice president, it is John Boehner, who is the speaker, who comes
third. But could it be true because the House is elected when the Senate is appointed?
No, I think that the similarities between the Kenyan National Assembly and the Senate are the same. The Senate in the US is representing regions, states, just as in Kenya, Senate is supposed to represent the counties. And that is why you have equal number of senators across the US. The smallest state, Vermont, has an equal number of senators, which is 2, to the biggest, which is California, because they represent states. All states are equal. But if you look at the establishment of House of Representatives in the US, it was supposed to represent the people, and that's why they have proportional representation, and they always have fixed number of seats. And they have this thing called gerrymandering. When one population goes up, the number of seats moves to that place. New York at one point has the highest number of seats, but the highest number of seats is now in California, because California now has a bigger population. So the House was established to represent the people, and the Senate was established to represent the regions. The Pennsylvania Conference was very clear on that. In fact, at the beginning, there was no Senate in the US. The Senate only came afterwards, after the Federalists complained of having somebody to represent their states. But at the beginning, everybody agreed with having the House, which is similar to the National Assembly, and it represents the proportionate of the people. They represent the people. And we can talk a lot of things about the Senate, the Kenya Senate, and the Kenya's National Assembly, because I always feel like they lose their meaning, what they're supposed to represent. They're supposed to represent the region. But Mr. Speaker, as I said, be that as it may, even if we are to go this way, we must clearly state what is parliament. Borrow from the US. The national speaker of the parliament in the US comes ahead of the Senate speaker. John Boehner today is ahead of Patrick Lee, and there's a reason for that. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the governors in all those protocols, though not legal.
Well, you are a dissenting voice. Can I give you 1 minute, but can you deliver it immediately? Can I see your intervention button? Yeah, because you are a dissenting voice, I need to give
So, Mr.
both
Speaker,
sides.
I think there are two things also this bill is missing. One is the foreign visiting heads of states. In the US, in that protocol, the visiting heads of states usually comes immediately after the president. If President of Uganda were to be here, I think he comes ahead of our Deputy President, William Ruto, next to the President. And the other thing, Mr. Speaker, the governors of the states where functions are taking place, and that's very specific, where functions are taking place, usually comes ahead of members of parliament and senators, because there is a reason for that. I think we'll look at amendments for that, but Mr. Speaker, I think the whole bill should not have a legal framework. It should just be a protocol.
Thank you very much.